All right, so we'll be talking about advanced workflows. So something that we're going to talk about is, sorting transitions with through creating automatic transitions, and how do we set those automatic transitions up, and having conditions for them. And kind of the next thing we'll talk about, and I'll show you guys and do testing with, is parallel transitions, which is new in 2013 Enterprise PDM. And I'm going to show you how you configure that and how it looks to the end user and how you can incorporate these new features into your workflows from 2013. So with sorting transitions, you can see here it's just, we'll have a sorting state for a particular workflow going to 3 different states. And the differentiating between them is just the file name. In this case, my example is that we have commodity codes for our file names. Certain files start with certain numbers based on if it's a frame, if it's a plastic, or if it's hardware, or something along those lines. And then with the parallel transitions, kind of out of the frame, plastics, and hardware review, I'll show you the new transitions with the parallel transitions in how to get something approved with multiple people. Okay, let's get started here. Okay, let me make this a bit bigger. And let me just kind of show you how the local view looks like. This is just a vault we're going to be using for today. It's this one here called Quick Start. We'll take a look into the engineering projects folder, and I have one in here and inside my design data. Okay, so all these files have like 2-digit numbers at the beginning of these files. So you can see the assembly starts in 05, 10s, there's a 12 in there, 13, 14, 15, and 20. So depending on which commodity code we're using, the file gets reviewed by different people if we need to make an ECO or something along those lines. So let's go ahead and get started here. Let me log into my administration tool. Okay, just make that a little bit wider. And we'll go ahead and just make a workflow from scratch. And I'll call this CAD ECO, something along those lines. For the conditions, I'm just going to leave in blank because I want these files will come from the regular CAD workflow. So just using a workflow transition instead. So no need for categories or filterings in here. All right, so as usual, there's a one workflow with a single workflow state. Let's change the name of this to, let's say, CAD sorting, something like that. Now I just want to make sure, people who can see the files here, adding permissions. And you notice if you're not using 2013, the interface for the workflow is a little bit different. Okay, so this is created. I just want to go ahead and save it first just once, so that now if I head back into the regular CAD workflow, in this case in the vault we call it it's the quick start vault. So this is pre-built quick start workflow. I'm just going to open that up. Just a basic workflow. With the work in process, then pending approval, and then released. So this is going to be for an ECO workflow. I'm going to make a new workflow link down here, and you can see what workflows are available. And I'll pick the CAD ECO. And remember, there's only one state in there right now, just CAD sorting. Hit OK. Put it down here somewhere. It's good. And then we'll make a new transition from release to CAD ECO. I'll make sure that managers can do this as well. So something like that, where you can link one workflow to another once a file's been set up that way here. Just kind of cleaning up my lines. And you can see that the interface is the different as well for your transition states and or your transitions and your workflow states here. Okay. So let me head back into the ECO workflow. I want to save this. Here we are. Let's go ahead and make the new states we'll need to make. So just 3 for now. This one will be frame. Go ahead and add, my managers. Or, and actually probably not managers. I just probably want our engineers. So they're the ones that, working on these files. But we won't focus too much on, who can do what right now. It's just kind of the basic stuff already. And this one will be plastics. And the last one here will be hardware. So here, what we want to happen is that when a file goes into this workflow, it'll get automatically sorted to these different states based on the commodity code for the file. So files that start with an 05, let me show you here, like an 05, a 10, 11, or 12 are considered frame. And then for hardware, which will be 13, 14, 15, and plastics is 20, 21, 22. But I don't have all the files here, but that's just for our example for what I want to show you. So let me head back here. First we'll just add some transitions. This is, we'll call this to frame. I'm just going to add them first, then we'll configure them after. This one will be to plastics. And the last one that we'll have for now will be to hardware, like so. Alright, let's kind of clean this up here. I kind of like my lines clean. So let's go ahead and do that here. Just dragging things along just to do some cleanup. That looks good. And lastly, just put this down in here. There we are. So that's just the regular transitions that we're all used to. So part of the sorting tool, we'll go ahead and do that. Say to frame, want to change the type here from normal to automatic. So this will happen automatically, and we'll kind of do it with all of these. But right now there's no intelligence built in, because right now it's just set, okay, once it goes to CAD sorting, it'll automatically go to frame, plastics, or hardware. So how to determine, based on our commodity codes, which is the file name of our files, we have to set up conditions for each of these transitions. So here, let me go to the conditions here, the conditions tab. Under the click here, these are the variables we want to add. Since there's going to be multiple commodity codes for each individual transition, we want to have this OR, kind of the OR container, and we can add multiple conditions here. So in this case, let's see here. Well, this will be for So it's going to be the file name, so I want to do by file path. Like, we're used to from the categories and workflows. And for the value, I'm going to type in backslash. This will be, for our frame, will be 05 for 1. We'll add some more right now. File path, text contains, backslash 10. File path, backslash 11. And lastly, file path, backslash 12. So this is, similar. It's the same setup as you would in a categories and your workflow conditions, or file paths, and this forces it to have a value of starting with an 05. So that takes care of those commodity codes. I'll go and do the same thing for our plastics and our hardware here. So just adding the conditions. Let's see. We want the OR container first. Make sure you have that since we have multiple conditions. File path. This one will be backslash for our plastics 20 backslash 21, and the last file path will be backslash 22. So these are hypotheticals for our lesson here, or our webinar here. Hit OK. Now last one, kind of the same thing, or file path. This is for our hardware, so this will be 13 for a file, 14, and 15. So these conditions are, just for the name of the file. You can have it, for other things as well, whether it's for a variable that you have on your data card, or maybe a particular revision set, or even a category of file if files had a particular category. So it's all pretty customizable that you can use your sorting tool for. But in this case, we're going to do just the file name and the first 2 digits of the file. Hit OK. We'll go ahead and save this out. And we'll continue on here. In this example, maybe engineers will work on the frame or the plastics and hardware when they're at these individual workflow states, and then once they're done, they'll send them to review, where someone can review them and then approve them. So we'll go ahead and add individual review states for each of these. Maybe we have different reviewers that need to review it, based on their groups. So just make a review here. We'll call this frame review. I'll add the managers to that. Add another new state for plastics review. And make sure that the managers can do all that stuff here. This is just kind of blank, just giving blanket permissions just for, for testing purposes, just to make it simpler. Hardware review here. And your permissions you can set up however you guys, depending on individual scenarios for everybody. So here are our reviews. Actually, let me make them a little bit wider for more room for our transitions. There we are. And next we need the transitions from the where we're working, or engineers are working on them, to their respective reviews. So we'll get make some new transitions. Let's see, this will be to review. To review. In this case, I'm just keeping them all the same name. the benefit of that is, let's say if someone is doing a review, working on plastics and hardware, they can send the same files through the same transition at the same time, since they have the same name. Because if I did it like to frame review or to plastics review or to hardware review, if I'm selecting a file that's in both plastics and hardware and want to do transition at the same time, it won't let that happen if they have different transition names. Okay, and if it gets reviewed at these in review states, but maybe we'll still need, if a file is not good or needs changes, we still need a way to get back into the working levels so that engineers can continue to work on it. So we'll add 3 more transitions here from the review state back to the frame, and I'll say edits required, and I'm going to say the managers have permission to do that. And just kind of cleaning up my arrows a little bit. Another one here for plastics review back to plastics. Edits required. And I just have to make sure that managers can do this. Clean up our arrows a bit. And you can see like I mentioned before, the interface is quite a bit different from 2012. And nothing from 2012 is that's pretty cool. That's widely requested was having a zooming function. So right from our workflow, we can zoom in and out. Just in case some of you guys haven't had a chance to use 2013 yet, maybe that's some a push for that, because before you'd have to what's called pan over instead of being able to zoom in. Zoom out to see everything. So I'll add some managers, permit them. Move that arrow out of the way a bit. Okay. So now the files can go from being worked on in their respective states, get sent to review, and then the reviewers can right now send it back for required, but we want to add an approval state. So let me zoom out a bit. We'll make a new state on the right here, and I'll say changes approved. I'll add our managers. Let's bring it out here. Make new transitions for all of these as well. Let's call them approved. Make sure that managers can do it. Make another one, new transition from plastics review to approved as well. And make sure we give the correct permissions for everybody. And one more here. Managers. Okay. Right now these are just regular transitions. What I want is that actually, yeah, we'll just regular transitions for now. Let me change the name here. I forgot to type that. Approved. So now these are just regular transitions. What I'll do next is change these up to be parallel approval. So maybe 2 or 3 people need to approve it, or that maybe there's a total of 3 people that can approve it. And we want at least 2 of those people to do the approvals. So new in 2013 is the parallel approval process that's built into the workflow. to set that up, just click on the transition, and so we can see its properties. Change from the type from normal to parallel. And here is the properties that changing. See there's a new roles tab now when you set it to parallel. This is how you can set up who's required to approve this. So we'll go ahead and add a role. We'll call this approvers. And for the members, I'll do managers and the admin users. So those two entities. So the admin user and the managers group. Hit OK. And in case here, maybe I only want 2 people from those that are required to have this go through that transition. So 2 separate entities need to do the approved transition. So I'll hit OK. I think there's already a role called that already. So let me say approver. Hit OK. There we go. So you can see here, that's the role. I think from previously I created one called approver, so that's why it's already there. But you can see it shows the role, and it shows the required users. In this case, the 2 out of 3. That means out of the 3 total users, requires 2 in order to go through this particular transition. And see now the interface itself, it lets you know that it's a parallel approval with this green transition and kind of the double green transition lines as well. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing for these other 2 transitions. So we'll change the type to parallel, add role. So it's already in the system already since I created approver. So from there you can just click on the drop down here and pick that, and I'll use the same approver groups, but the required user still just defaults to 1 out of 3. So I just double click that, change that to 2. Same thing again for approved. For the from hardware to approval. Change that to parallel, add the role of approver, change that to 2 required. And I think I need to make sure, just want to double check they have permissions here for both managers and admin, which they do. Okay. So, but in this case, once a file gets approved, it requires 2 people. The files will go from review to approved. And in this case, I want to not just have files sit back in here. I want the files to get back into the CAD workflow and increment the revision to the next level. So we'll make another workflow link down here. And our workflow for our CAD files is QS workflow. And the state will be in the release state down here. So once files have been approved, we just want to make a transition to go from changes approved to that workflow link. Make it automatic. And I'll say ECO approved for the name. Just need to make sure the managers can do this permission. And we'll also add, the basic actions that we need to add to increment its revision. So I'll say here, increment revision on data card. So, the usual that we're used to. Set variable. We'll pick out revision from the list. And we'll choose next revision from the menu here. That's just one part of it. We'll need to do another one. I'll type in increment revision on database. And this will be an inc revision. Stuff we're used to already to increment revision for a file. So just those two, no conditions. We want it so that whenever a file already gets approved, just gets automatic to this new transition with incrementing its revision. Okay, let me kind of move this out of the way. Just down here. Like so. So that's how we want it to look like for our workflow. So let's go ahead and save this and we'll test it out. So here we have our CAD files. Let me make this a little bit wider so we can see more of the files. So all these files are at released. So let's say, for example, we want all these files to get an ECO, and I think I forgot to change the name of that. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. Quick start workflow. Here, that new transition. Let me just change the name so it's a bit better to work with. New ECO, something like that. Save that workflow. Head back to here. Once again, all the files are already selected. Change state. Here's that new ECO. I'll make a little comment. Need to change files. And you can see now the states are their respective states. So these ones at the top from 5 through 12 are in the frame state. 13 through 15 are in hardware. And the files here that start with 20 are in plastics. So that's how the sorting tool in our workflow here is working. Everything goes to CAD sorting first, and then gets filtered to these automatic transitions because of our conditions, like so that I showed you in the beginning. So let's, we'll test it out just as the admin user for now. Let's say this one file here. We make changes on it, engineering makes changes, and then we'll go ahead and submit it for review. So we'll go to review. The file sits at this review state here, frame review. And let's say I think it looks good. And you can see here with the new parallel transitions, we have that option for approved. It says 0 out of 2. So I'll select that. And you can see in our results window, it shows requires one more user. So I'll say approved. So the state here still stays at frame review. It doesn't change. But if I right click, change state, I have the ability to revoke my approved transition that I just did. So if I change my mind after the fact, I can bring it back here with this revoke transition. But let's say we'll log back in as one of the managers here. So we can do the parallel approval. Let's see here. Manager is the username. Let me get into the vault here, our quick start vault. Projects, our last one here. So here's that file in review. I'll right click it and change state. And right now though, my only option is just approved. What if this manager, doesn't like what's going on here and he wants to not approve it? The reason why, but remember in our workflow, there's already a transition to edits required. But right now we can't see that transition here. But from what I remember, we have the correct permissions. So let me check back into our workflow. Here's our frame review. Let me double check. Yeah, so it's frame review. So the file sitting in frame review, the manager can approve the the file, as we can see, but they can't, say, no, I want edits required. So let me check its permissions here. So here's managers. They have access to it. But the key thing is here is there's this option for this checkbox. It says hide when sibling parallel transition is chosen. So that's what's going on right now. This edits required transition is hidden because the sibling parallel transition, which is this approved transition, is already selected. So someone else already selected approved. So right now the only option is for the manager to do approve. But we want the ability to have the manager or anyone else say, no, one of you, even though one of you guys thinks it's approved, but I don't agree, I want to have edits required. I'll uncheck that hide when sibling parallel transition is chosen. I'll hit OK. And I think I'll do that with all of them right now. So all these edits required, we'll uncheck the hide. Save the workflow. And I will head back in here. Here's our frame review. I can right click on it. And now here's our approved, 1 out of 2. It needs one more. And here's that edits required. So maybe if I don't agree with what's going on, maybe something needs to change, just something small. I'll say need to make some changes. Hit OK. And now the file heads back to the frame state. But now, let's say all of this stuff is good to go. Right click, change state. I think managers don't have the access to do that. So let me just, this is just for demonstration purposes. So let me go ahead and add some users for that here. So instead of me logging out in and out again, I'll go ahead and just add the permissions for now. Here we go. Save the workflow. Head back in here. And now I want to go ahead and submit it to review. Here we are. And that only can happen because all those transition names were the same. So they're all to review. If they weren't all to review, I'd have to do them individually. And let's say I approve for all these. So approved. And you can see all of them require one more user. And the state doesn't change. It just says the state is the same. We'll log off of the manager. And let me go ahead and log back in as the admin user. So here, maybe I'll just do one file for now, for a second here. Just this one component. Right click, change state. Now, as a admin, I also get the same options here because I have that edits required unchecked to hide when a sibling parallel transition is selected. So I'll go ahead and approve this. I'll say approved on my end. And they go to the release state because of the way the workflow is. It went to these changes approved, and then another transition to the workflow link to head back into the review state, into the release state on our CAD workflow. And remember, we incremented its revision, so let me make sure that went through correctly. And it did. It's at revision C when previously it was at revision B. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing for everything else. Just a simple right click. see here. Approved. And it just says, file, if one file that we first did is in the wrong state, so that's fine. All good on my end. All right, so it's all released. Here's our top level assembly. It's at revision C. They were all at B beforehand. But you can see now how some of those new tools we can kind of work with our workflow. Just to kind of do an overview. Everything in our regular CAD workflow, our basic CAD workflow, we first, files were at released. And then we did a new ECO transition, which uses this workflow link to move the file to the CAD ECO workflow into the state of CAD sorting. Let's take a look at that here. Here's our CAD ECO workflow, and the sorting transitions at the upper sorting state is at the upper left. And we have these transitions that are automatic with their condition filters. Remember, they're OR containers to accommodate our commodity codes for our files, starting with an 05, 10, 11, 12 for the file paths. And kind of similar things for the plastics and 2 hardware, so I won't go ahead and take a look at those. And then kind of doing the overall thing, just files will go into their respective edit states for frame, plastics, and hardware. And then users, make changes to it and then submit it to review. And then files will sit in this review state. And from there, we have this approved transition that are parallel. And remember, when you select parallel, you can add the role and determine, what groups or what users have the ability are in that role, and how many are required out of the amount of users total. So you could have 1 out of 3, which really doesn't make sense, but at least 2 members, so you can have it into a parallel approval. So have 2 or more people approve a drawing before it actually moves through that transition. But the key thing, though, or another, not necessarily key thing, but another thing to make sure is that by default, whenever you make transitions, it has that checkbox turned on for hide when sibling parallel transition is chosen. So if you want, if one of the required users does approved, and any other user can only see that approved transition, to be able to see any other transition to not agree with approved, you have to uncheck the hide when sibling parallel transition is chosen, or else the user, like you saw, like I demonstrated, they have no other option but to approve, but maybe they don't want to approve it for whatever reason. Alright, so that's pretty much for our advanced workflows. I hope you guys learned something new, whether sorting features through our workflow with our transitions, or through the parallel approval process. And let me head back to here. So thanks again for sitting in our summer school. This is just the first lessons of our summer school. We have 2 more, next Friday and the Friday after that. Next Friday is on custom properties. We'll learn how to link custom properties from Word, Excel, SOLIDWORKS documents into Enterprise, and which will also include how to remove watermarks from SOLIDWORKS drawings, and it can be wiped away once a document has been released. And on the 2 weeks from now, Friday, I think I have the wrong date there. It'll be on dispatch. You're able to automate some simple tasks without going into API and writing custom scripts, and learn more of the basics of creating dispatch scripts. So that'll be available 2 weeks from now. So thank you very much for sitting with us here.